Welcome to one of the most enigmatic, unforgiving, and deeply traditional frontiers on planet Earth, South Sudan. Imagine a land where your entire net worth, social status, and even your path to marriage are determined not by paper currency or digital bank accounts, but solely by the size of your cattle herd. Nestled in East Central Africa, this young nation presents a striking paradox, a landscape rich in resources, yet profoundly isolated from the modern global economy. Beyond the political headlines lies an extraordinary reality where ancient tribal rituals dictate daily life, and women serve as the ultimate pillars of family honor. Get ready, because we are about to step onto a mesmerizing journey into a world where modern clocks stop and the ancient laws of the savannah rule supreme. Before we dive deep into this incredible documentary, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an adventure. Drop a comment below. Could you imagine living in a world where cows are worth more than cash? Let's find out together. South Sudan, the world's youngest nation. Have you ever wondered what it looks like when a brand new nation is born in the modern era, carrying the heavy weight of history on its shoulders? We look directly at South Sudan, officially recognized as the world's youngest country after gaining its hard-fought, blood-stained independence from Sudan in July 2011. Following decades of brutal, devastating civil war that cost millions of innocent lives and displaced generations, a historic referendum brought tears of joy and a wave of fierce, unshakable optimism to a population that dreamed of building a peaceful, prosperous future from the ground up. The atmosphere back then was absolutely electric, filled with global promises of rapid progress, international aid, infrastructure development, and integration into the global community. However, the reality of nation building in the 21st century has proven to be incredibly complex, painful, and slow. Today, South Sudan sits near the bottom of global human development indexes, frequently ranked by economists and global analysts as one of the poorest, most volatile, and fragile places on the entire planet. Political instability, internal factions, and severe hyperinflation have crippled formal industries, meaning that modern infrastructure like paved highways, running tap water, and centralized power grids remain rare, unattainable luxuries outside a few major administrative hubs. Yet, this deep economic isolation has created an unintended societal time capsule. Away from the bureaucratic halls of power and urban development, many rural communities continue to live precisely as their ancestors did hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. Modern paper money completely loses its meaning here. Instead, daily survival depends entirely on a deep, instinctual understanding of the unpredictable land, an unwavering commitment to tribal identity, and a total reliance on ancestral customs that have outlasted empires, colonial rulers, and modern borders alike. The Dinka, the tallest people in Africa. Let us venture far out of the developing urban centers and travel into the vast, sun-baked savannas to meet the Dinka people, the largest and culturally dominant ethnic group in South Sudan. If you ever find yourself walking through a traditional Dinka settlement, the very first thing that will strike you is their staggering, almost mythic physical presence. The Dinka are renowned globally for their extraordinary height, with grown men frequently averaging well over 6 feet tall, and many individuals reaching closer to 7 feet, making them indisputably some of the tallest people on the African continent. Their long, slender limbs and exceptionally deep-toned, dark skin are perfectly adapted evolutionary traits designed to radiate heat and survive under the fierce, unrelenting equatorial sun of the savannah. But their height is not the only thing that defines them. It is their profound, almost spiritual connection to their environment. The entire soul, economic survival, and cultural identity of the Dinka are inextricably linked to their livestock. To a Dinka man, a cow is not just a piece of livestock or a simple source of meat. It is a direct mirror of his own existence, his pride, his manhood, and his ancestral line. They spend their entire days guiding vast herds across dusty plains, singing beautiful, rhythmic praise songs to their favorite bulls, and sleeping directly alongside them in temporary seasonal camps called cattle wrecks. From a very young age, Dinka boys are initiated into manhood by being given a specific ox name based on the unique colors, spots, and horn patterns of a chosen calf. This forms a lifelong psychological bond with the animal that shapes their personality, dictates their social responsibilities, and determines their status within the clan for the rest of their lives. Cows are more valuable than money. Why would a human community in the modern era of digital assets and global trade place the animal kingdom so fiercely at the absolute center of their existential universe? In South Sudan, cows are not just farm animals. They are the ultimate currencies, the absolute measure of personal wealth, and the definitive symbol of social prestige. Forget gold bars, commercial real estate, or digital stock portfolios. Here, a family's true worth and long-term financial security are calculated solely by the number of horns grazing in their yard. A prosperous household can easily own hundreds of cattle, and every single animal is intimately known by its owners. recognized instantly by its unique skin markings, the specific curvature of its horns, and its individual temperament. This profound, age-old obsession means that livestock completely governs every major social interaction, economic transaction, and legal settlement within the community. Cattle are utilized to pay legal fines, settle bloody intercommunal feuds, secure strategic tribal alliances, and provide life-sustaining, nutrient-rich milk for young children during times of harsh environmental scarcity. However, this hypervaluation creates a volatile, double-edged sword that threatens the fragile peace of the country daily. Because cows are so incredibly precious and carry such immense purchasing power, they are also the primary catalyst for severe tribal violence. For generations, intense cattle raiding between rival communities has been a common, yet increasingly dangerous, rite of passage for young warriors eager to prove their bravery and build their own wealth. In a land where a single bull can alter a family's financial destiny overnight, disputes over fertile grazing lands, shrinking watering holes, and stolen herds frequently escalate into deep-seated armed conflicts that have shaped the security landscape of the entire country for centuries. A bride for dozens of cows. If you think a modern Western wedding or a city marriage is expensive, wait until you see what it truly takes to marry in South Sudan. In this deeply traditional society, the ancient custom of bride wealth is not just a passing cultural formality, it is a rigid, mandatory, and high-stakes economic system. When a young man wishes to ask for a woman's hand in marriage, he does not present a diamond engagement ring or a cash down payment. Instead, he must enter into complex, lengthy negotiations to pay a price completely in cattle to the bride's family. The price of a bride is highly variable, but it is never cheap. Depending on her family's social status, her physical beauty, her height, which is highly prized, and her level of formal education, a bride's dowry can range anywhere from 30 to over 100 cows. For an exceptionally prized woman, such as the daughter of a prominent tribal chief or an educated urban woman, the price can skyrocket into hundreds of cattle, turning the wedding negotiation into a high-stakes corporate merger that involves entire communities. This means that marriage is never just a simple romantic affair between two individuals. It is a profound alliance that binds entire clans together, dictating family honor and social mobility. For the groom's family, accumulating enough cattle to secure a wife requires years of collective saving, borrowing from extended relatives, and intense strategic planning. For the bride's family, a daughter is seen as a source of immense wealth and generational security, an asset that will bring prosperity and elevate the family's standing in the community. While outsiders looking through a modern global lens might view this system as the commercialization of women, locals view it as a deep, profound sign of respect. A high cattle price demonstrates to the entire community just how highly valued, cherished, and respected the bride is by both her birth family and her new in-laws. The scars of manhood and maturity. As we travel deeper into the rural territories and isolated villages, you will immediately notice a striking, unforgettable physical feature worn proudly on the faces of many locals. Among the Dinka, Nuer, and several other ethnic groups in South Sudan, facial scarification remains a vital, deeply entrenched, and non-negotiable rite of passage. For young boys, typically between the vulnerable ages of 13 and 16, transitioning from childhood into manhood requires enduring a brutal and incredibly painful ceremony. Without a single flinch, a tear, or a cry of pain, the youth must sit completely still under the scorching sun while a tribal elder uses a razor-sharp knife to slice deep geometric lines across his forehead, often carving a series of parallel lines that stretch permanently from ear to ear. To the untrained outsider, this custom appears shockingly painful, dangerous, and archaic, but to the local community, these scars are the ultimate badge of honor and identity. They are a permanent, visible, and unarrestable declaration of a man's courage, endurance, and physical readiness to protect his tribe from invaders or wild animals. If a boy cries out or shows even a flicker of fear during the carving process, he brings immense irreversible shame upon his entire family, branded as a coward by his peers and outcasted from warrior privileges. Once healed, these raised scars completely redefine his social status. He is no longer viewed as a dependent child. He is officially a warrior, permitted to own his own cattle, negotiate for a wife, and go to battle. Women also participate in scarification, though their patterns are often more intricate and carved on the chest or abdomen, serving as a powerful symbol of beauty, maturity, and their sacred ability to endure the intense pain of childbirth. Life inside the mighty Sud wetland. Now, let us journey away from the dry savannas and into one of the most geographically isolating, extreme, and awe-inspiring environments on the planet, the Sud. Spanning over 57,000 square kilometers during the peak of the rainy season, the Sud is recognized as one of the largest freshwater wetlands in the entire world. It is a massive, shifting, and unpredictable labyrinth of dark swamps, thick papyrus reeds, and endless water hyacinths fed continuously by the powerful waters of the White Nile. For centuries, this colossal swamp acted as an impenetrable natural barrier, stopping foreign invaders, European explorers, and modern industrial developments from ever reaching or altering the heart of South Sudan. For the unique communities living deep within the Sud, life is a daily, relentless battle of survival against the water. During the rainy season, massive floods swallowed the surrounding land, turning villages into tiny, isolated islands floating in a vast inland sea. Roads completely disappear under meters of water, leaving traditional wooden canoes as the only possible mode of transportation, communication, and trade. But the water brings more than just physical isolation, it brings immense daily hardship. The stagnant swamps are a perfect breeding ground for millions of mosquitoes, unleashing relentless, deadly waves of malaria and waterborne diseases upon the vulnerable population. Yet, despite the complete lack of modern medicine, clean running water or electricity, the resilient people of the Sud refuse to leave their ancestral home. They have adapted completely to this watery wilderness, relying on the predictable annual floods to rejuvenate the soil and provide an abundant supply of fish, proving that humans' resilience can thrive and build a rich culture in even the most inhospitable corners of the earth. Cow dung smoke and the secret to combating mosquitoes. Living in the very heart of the great African wilderness, especially within or near the vast, swampy expanses of the Nile and the Sud, means facing an invisible, relentless, and potentially deadly enemy every single night. Swarms of millions of voracious, disease-carrying mosquitoes. In a remote region where modern chemical insect repellents, electric vaporizers, and synthetic mosquito nets are expensive, unattainable luxuries, the people of South Sudan have turned to an ancient, highly effective biochemical solution provided directly by their most trusted companions. The secret to their survival lies in the humble, abundant supply of cow dung. Every single evening, as the blistering sun dips below the horizon and the insects begin their aggressive nightly invasion, the cattle camps undergo a dramatic visual transformation into a mystical landscape of smoldering fires. The tribal youth carefully collect dried cattle manure throughout the day and pile it into specific strategic mounds around the camp, lighting them to create a thick, pungent, and heavy white smoke that completely blankets the entire settlement. This heavy smoke acts as a highly effective natural and non-toxic fumigation system, keeping the deadly mosquitoes at bay and protecting both human and animal life. But the protective process does not stop there. The fine, powdery gray ash left behind by these fires is systematically collected the next morning and rubbed entirely over the skin of both the humans and the cattle. To an outsider, seeing people covered from head to toe in ghost-like cow ash is a shocking, eerie sight. However, this powdery layer serves a brilliant dual purpose engineered by centuries of adaptation. It acts as a powerful, natural sunscreen against the blistering equatorial daytime sun and forms a physical protective barrier against insect bites at night, showcasing a brilliant example of ancestral survival engineering utilizing nothing but the environment around them. The seasonal migrations of the savanna. Life in South Sudan is not lived within the rigid confines of a single permanent location. Instead, it is lived in constant, rhythmic, and harmonious motion with the earth. The climate here is aggressively and predictably divided into two extreme periods: the punishing, bone-dry season and the overwhelming, flood-heavy wet season. To survive these wild, uncompromising swings of nature, entire communities must pack up their lives, dismantle their temporary homes, and embark on massive, traditional seasonal migrations that have occurred for generations. When the heavy rains finally stop and the scorching sun bakes the northern pastures into cracked, barren dirt, the cattle camps mobilize. Thousands of people, alongside tens of thousands of majestic cattle, form massive, slow-moving columns that march across the vast savanna toward the retreating riverbeds and low-lying wetlands. This nomadic journey is a monumental logistical feat, a masterclass in community organization, and a foundational part of tribal life. Young, armed men lead the vanguard of the herds, scouting ahead for green grass and hidden water sources, while women, children, and village elders follow closely behind, carrying essential household goods, heavy cooking pots, and materials for temporary shelters on their heads. For months on end, these mobile communities live a completely transient existence, setting up temporary camps wherever life-sustaining water can be found. This lifestyle requires an immense amount of physical endurance, psychological grit, and fluid social cooperation. There are no permanent property lines, fences, or concrete deeds on the open plains. Instead, access to grazing pasture is negotiated through ancient tribal agreements, shared history, and mutual respect, keeping a centuries-old nomadic heritage vibrantly alive in a modern world that increasingly demands fixed borders, fences, and walls. Tribal conflicts and the battle for resources. While this nomadic lifestyle is a beautiful, poetic testament to human adaptability, it also harbors a dark, deeply entrenched, and tragic cycle of instability. The harsh, unyielding reality of South Sudan is that life-sustaining resources are incredibly scarce, And when water holes dry up and fertile green pastures dwindle, competition between clans turns deadly. For generations, traditional disputes over land rights and cattle raiding were fought primarily with hand-carved spears and wooden shields, governed by strict cultural laws where tribal elders could easily step in to negotiate peace, arrange blood compensation, and restore intercommunal balance. However, decades of prolonged civil war at the national level have permanently altered the rules of engagement on the savanna, flooding the rural countryside with millions of modern automatic weapons, most notably the AK-47. Today, what used to be localized, low-casualty livestock disputes can rapidly escalate into high-casualty tribal conflicts within a matter of hours. Young cattle herders now carry military-grade rifles slung casually across their bare shoulders, not out of malice or a desire for war, but out of absolute, desperate necessity to protect their family's sole economic livelihood and survival from heavily armed raiders. These recurring, violent clashes over dwindling resources create a persistent atmosphere of fear, anxiety, and volatility throughout the rural territories. This constant state of alert disrupts local trade networks, halts formal education for children, and forces entire communities to flee their ancestral lands at a moment's notice. It is a complex, heartbreaking cycle where the immense pressure of a changing global climate, a historical lack of formal government policing, and the tragic abundance of modern weaponry trap these deeply traditional societies in a continuous, exhausting struggle for basic survival. Capital Juba, A Tale of Two Worlds. To truly appreciate and understand the deep, dizzying divide between ancient tradition and modern reality in South Sudan, one must step out of the bush and visit the bustling, chaotic capital city of Juba. Situated strategically along the banks of the majestic White Nile, Juba serves as the undisputed heartbeat of the nation's political, financial, and economic life, presenting a jarring, almost cinematic contrast to the rural cattle camps located just a few hours' drive away. Here, the urban landscape is defined by the rapid, chaotic influx of foreign investment, corporate oil ventures, and international humanitarian aid. High-end, heavily fortified hotels line the muddy riverfront, their air-conditioned conference rooms packed to capacity with global diplomats, United Nations officials, and foreign oil executives sipping expensive, imported coffee while discussing multi-million-dollar contracts. Modern, expensive SUVs navigate the newly paved main avenues, and upscale restaurants serve international cuisine under the bright glow of reliable, expensive generator power, creating a hypermodern bubble of wealth, security, and global geopolitical activity. Yet, this urban sophistication represents a completely different universe, a detached reality from the rest of the country. Just beyond the secure, guarded perimeters of Juba's elite districts lies a stark, sobering reality that covers the majority of the nation. The vast majority of South Sudan's rural population remains completely locked out of this modern digital economy. In the distant, isolated provinces, there are virtually no paved roads, meaning that traveling a couple of hundred miles can take days, or even weeks, during the muddy rainy season when vehicles get swallowed by clay. Millions of citizens still live without a single watt of electricity, relying on firewood and kerosene lamps, while access to clean, safe drinking water requires backbreaking labor from young girls. This severe development gap creates a profound domestic paradox. While the capital rapidly adapts to the digital age, internet connectivity, and global commerce, the vast countryside remains firmly anchored in the survivalist, timeless rhythms of the past, highlighting a deep societal fracture where the high-tech future and the ancient world must coexist under the very same flag. South Sudanese women and the heavy burden of life. If the majestic cattle are the economic currency and physical lifeblood of South Sudan, then the resilient women are undeniably the backbone, the unbreakable glue, and the silent, nurturing life force holding this fragile society together. In both the permanent rural villages and the transient nomadic camps, a South Sudanese woman bears an unimaginably heavy physical, emotional, and psychological burden from the break of dawn until the dead of night. While the men are primarily responsible for the high-level security of the tribe, political negotiations, and the long-distance herding and protection of the livestock, the immediate, daily survival of the household falls entirely on the shoulders of the women. They are the very first to wake up long before sunrise, working under the dim morning light to grind heavy grain by hand, tend to small, fragile agricultural plots of sorghum, cook nutritious meals over open wood fires, and care for the elderly and young children. Perhaps the most grueling, physically exhausting aspect of their daily routine is the endless quest for water. Due to the severe lack of basic rural infrastructure, clean running water is a non-existent luxury. Women and young girls must walk for miles across scorching, highly insecure terrains, balancing heavy, 20-liter plastic jerry cans on their heads under the blazing, unforgiving African sun. Despite these immense, relentless hardships and a deeply patriarchal social structure that often excludes them from formal tribal councils or ownership of assets, these women possess an unbreakable, majestic resilience that commands absolute respect. They are the true center of community life, organizing cooperative informal networks to support one another during times of crisis, passing down rich oral histories and cultural values to the next generation through traditional songs, and ensuring their families survive the twin threats of armed conflict and climate extremes. Their strength is not loud, aggressive, or boastful. It is a quiet, enduring, and monumental fortitude that keeps the heartbeat of the nation alive through its darkest, most turbulent chapters. South Sudan, where tradition overpowers modernity. Ultimately, South Sudan stands before the world as a mesmerizing, deeply profound global anomaly. A rare place where the unyielding power of ancient tradition completely overpowers, resists, and ignores the relentless march of modern globalization. In a fast-paced 21st century world that values hyper-digital connectivity, rapid urbanization, artificial intelligence, and individual financial independence, this young African nation stubbornly and proudly refuses to abandon its roots. Here, the ancient triad of the beast, the tribe and the land, remains completely unbroken and sacred. The core, life-altering decisions of a person's existence, whom they marry, how their complex legal disputes are settled, and how their generational wealth is protected, are not dictated by written constitutional laws, formal courtrooms, or modern banking institutions, but by the ancestral decrees of tribal elders and the timeless, universal value of livestock. This absolute dominance of tradition is both a protective shield and a restrictive cage for the population. On one hand, it provides a deeply comforting, reliable social safety net that governments often fail to provide. In times of severe famine, drought, or localized crisis, the community immediately rallies together, sharing life-sustaining milk, food, and physical protection based on ancient kinship bonds that no economic depression or inflation can ever erase. On the other hand, this fierce adherence to the past locks the society in a rigid time capsule, making progressive, much-needed reforms in formal education, modern healthcare, gender equality, and centralized governance incredibly slow and difficult to take root. As you watch a young Dinka warrior stand proudly alongside his cattle, silhouetted against the vast crimson African horizon, you realize you are witnessing one of the last truly authentic, unadulterated traditional societies left on Earth. A place where the past isn't just remembered in history books, but actively, intensely lived every single day. Our journey through the raw, untamed heart of South Sudan challenges everything we know about wealth, progress, and civilization. In a world stripped down to its absolute essentials, the people here remind us of the incredible power of human resilience and the deep comfort of cultural roots. It is a place where time isn't measured by a clock, but by the movement of the herds and the changing of the seasons. Thank you so much for watching this extraordinary journey with us. If this documentary opened your eyes to a completely different side of our world, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next exploration. Don't forget to drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on these unbelievable traditions. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and safe travels.